this marvelous place of forests and streams, ponds, meadows, and horse trails.
It is beautiful to see the fields blow in the wind, to see them with the mist in the morning and the sun setting behind them. It's absolutely magnificent. The joy of this little gem of an area is that it's going to always be this way.
A place of such peace and beauty.
This is a very special place. Wendell Berry once wrote that you don't know who you are unless you know where you are. Land is essential to the American identity.
When my family moved here in the late 1960s, it was a beautiful, wide-open, rural landscape. But we could see that development was moving in from virtually every direction.
The Willistown Conservation Trust started from local citizens, landowners, who loved their place. And there was a sense of urgency. They needed to move quickly to protect that before it was lost.
It was the early conservation easement donors who were the brave souls in this community. It was a big step to preserve your land against future development, not knowing really what the future held. And it was those early landowners that really set the tone and developed the land ethic that's carried on in this community today.
I was with Bonnie at the Brandywine Conservancy, and the community decided really that we'd like some of our own sort of representation. And so the two of us left the Brandywine and started the trust.
And that was really the beginning of what we thought was going to be accomplished in a few short years, but that was 30 years ago, and we're still working at it. All one needs to do is look at the greater Philadelphia area, and Willistown stands out as a rural place that's within commuting distance.
And if the trust hadn't done its work to preserve all this open space and all this land, it would be a totally different world, and it would not be the great thing that it is today. And I think that that's a remarkable success story, because when the open space is gone, it's gone. You can't get it back.
Increasingly, our open spaces are disappearing. I grew up listening to the whippoorwill when I laid in bed, and you don't hear that anymore. And the open spaces that are being preserved by the trust, I think, benefit everyone.
We have a good-sized parcel of land here in Willistown. The property was originally slated to get 600,000 square feet of commercial office space. And we purchased it from the developer in 1992, added a few structures in close proximity to the farmhouse, and put a conservation easement on the rest of the land. So everybody can enjoy it.
In talking to the Willistown Conservation Trust, we were made aware of the land that we're standing on, but they were looking for a conservation buyer. So we spent a lot of time defining what exactly was meant by a conservation buyer, which seemed to be something we could absolutely live with, and something we wanted to do anyway, frankly.
If I get a piece of land that's under easement, it's not a fragmented piece. It's part of a larger whole, and I just love having that experience for myself and for my children.
It would have been developed, and now it's a great resource. And of course, I know that when I'm gone, it'll still be there. I feel good about it.
I love the fact that our land is now preserved. I love the fact that the view that we see here will never change. And I love knowing who lived here before us, and that it will be like this for the next several hundred years.
The great heroes of land conservation are actually the landowners. People who said, I'm going to pass this on as it is, have a sense of satisfaction in life that is palpable.
The conservation easements that we have in the area, they will never go away. And a lot of the times when we're working with a landowner on a property which is eased with the trust, I think to myself, what's someone in 1,000 years going to be doing on this piece of property? And the really amazing part of that is that that piece of property is going to look essentially the same way then as it does today. And that's really where the power of what we're doing comes through.
Now, it's also natural in the evolution of a land trust, once a core area of land is protected, to then look to the next stage of its service and its evolution.
Really what the trust is about more than anything else is connecting people with the land. And the trust is doing so many things that go beyond just preserving space, but get into a farm operation, repairing a riparian buffer, get into the bird program, getting into the educational work that we're doing. We're really becoming a force for good in this community.
Willistown Conservation Trust has been one of the first land trusts in the country to understand the connection between food and land conservation.
We have 3 acres that is our ground that we grow on. For us, that is perfect for an intensive farm operation.
It's also just a wonderful way to bring community together. School children there working, interns and college kids, people stopping by on their way home from work to pick up tomatoes and lettuce.
Our CSA membership at this point is 100 families. We grow 150 varieties of fruits and vegetables, and we have a goal of donating 10% of what we harvest to our Share the Bounty program, which is giving to area food shelters. What we've shown through Willistown Farm is the ability for that ground to produce food, to bring the community together, and still respect the natural resources.
It just makes whole this enterprise of the Willistown Conservation Trust, that it's not just about land and wildlife, it's about people.
The goals have been primarily to reach out and bring people into this and bring them in a meaningful way. We have a program called the TAP Project. A group of kids from Chester come out on a regular basis, and they have kind of taken ownership of the farm after being very tentative at first.
It was a first harvesting. It was a first having salsa, a first having fresh tomatoes. The entire experience was a first. The young people with whom I work, through no fault of their own, just by virtue of where they were born and their zip code and the school that they go to, live in an environment of extreme chaos.
Just the fact that we cared so much about their well-being and what they were learning, a trust began to develop, and they began to see the farm as a safety zone.
The folks at Willistown Conservation Trust and Willistown Farm have an understanding of young people. They understand the importance of accepting everyone. There are no ulterior motives here. They love coming out here. It's just been great for them.
Rushton is nested within the Ridley-Crum Creek Important Bird Area. Now, this is a nationally designated important bird area with a capital I, B, and A.
It's a huge designation, and as a result of that designation, we need to monitor the species that are using our program area.
I was looking for an eagle project, and I talked to Lisa and several other people here at the Trust, and I decided that building a structure for the bird banding program here would be a great project for me because it gives it an area to house all of the materials they need for the banding program, as well as shelter from the rain.
What we do is we actually set up mist nets. They're like giant hair nets is what I like to call them. And we decided to do it at Willistown Farm because it creates this incredible habitat for birds to feed in the agricultural fields and then get cover back in the hedgerows. And the amount of bird species that have come to that farm since the agricultural fields have been set up has been unbelievable.
We see this as a demonstration of how you can best manage a critical habitat within one of our most important bird areas.
I'd say we're drawing people in from a 60-mile radius. People that are, 5 to 95 come out to the banding station, and when you have a child hold a bird in their hand and see the feather detail.
Seeing magnolia warblers in your hand is a lot different from seeing them hundreds of feet away in a tree.
The connection is made, and that's it. You now have a budding conservationist.
My daughter, Isabel. It's amazing, but this kind of experience that she's having right now, this can change her life. It can change your life. It changed my life.
Sharing is really integral to everything that we do.
mean, the Trust has made it possible for people to spend hours and hours and hours of enjoyment out on the trails and in the woods.
We dream of a future where there is a network of connected trails throughout the countryside where people can come and walk and ride and hike from one preserve to another, from a preserve to the farm, and connecting all of the spaces that have been protected.
The primary mission of the Trust is to protect open space. The mission beyond protecting the land is then to be good stewards of that land.
Habitat restoration is one of the Trust's most important mandates.
And that can involve many different things, from restoring fields to wildflower meadows, to restoring woodlands by planting trees and shrubs, to our deer management program.
We can protect land, but if we don't improve the habitat, it doesn't help the situation for wildlife, for clean, fresh water, and for creating opportunities to better the environment that we've started with here.
It further builds that partnership that we have with the community and the people who live here, and that has benefits and impacts that go far beyond anything that we could ever measure.
Our mission is connecting people with nature, and what Willistown has done is taken it to the next level. It's become a magnet for the community to enjoy. It might be a walk in the woods, it might be bird banding, it might be harvesting some of the food at Rushton, but all of these things reinforce each other, and that's a very positive thing for our mission.
There is so much work left to do. We have another 4,000 acres of land that we have identified as critical, vulnerable, worthy of protection in order to complete this wonderful mosaic of countryside that we have. And that really is our vision.
According to the U.S. Census, we will add 100 million new people here in the United States. Most of them are going to live in metropolitan areas, most of them on the East Coast. Philadelphia is going to continue to expand, and this little treasure is going to be right in the line of that expansion. It will be up to the landowners and the citizens around Willistown to say, yes, we want this place to be like this for all time.